Florida is hot. So why is 100 degrees so rare? Florida is famous for heat. It is the Sunshine State, a place where summer seems to last half the year, where stepping outside in August can feel like opening the door of an oven with a wet towel wrapped around your face. So this should not sound unusual. 100 degrees. Phoenix does it. Dallas does it. Las Vegas can blow past it. But Miami? On August 18th, 2026, at 2:47 in the afternoon, the official thermometer at Miami International Airport reached exactly 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And that was extraordinary, because in more than 130 years of Miami weather records, it had happened only once before. July 21st, 1942. For 84 years, Miami never made it back. And that raises a strange question. How can one of the hottest, muggiest, most famously tropical cities in America almost never reach 100 degrees? The answer is hidden in the very thing that makes Florida, Florida. Water. Look at a map of the United States in summer, and Florida seems like it should be one of the hottest places in the country. It hangs into the subtropics, surrounded by warm water, drenched in sunshine, and covered in pavement, rooftops, and concrete. But Florida is also a peninsula, and a peninsula behaves differently from a giant piece of land. The Atlantic Ocean sits on one side. The Gulf sits on the other. In South Florida, you are never very far from an enormous body of water, and water heats much more slowly than land. Every summer morning, the Florida sun begins cooking the peninsula. Parking lots warm, roofs warm, sand warms, asphalt warms. The air over the land rises. But offshore, the ocean changes temperature far more slowly. That difference creates one of Florida's most important weather machines, the sea breeze. Cooler marine air begins pushing inland from the coast, replacing the rising hot air over land. To someone standing outside, this breeze may not feel particularly cool. It is still Florida in August. But meteorologically, it matters. That marine air can shave just enough off the afternoon temperature to keep coastal cities from crossing the triple-digit line. The National Weather Service has specifically noted this effect along Florida's coasts. Sea breezes routinely moderate temperatures at places like Tampa and Fort Myers. And then Florida adds a second defense: thunderstorms. On a typical summer afternoon, those sea breezes march inland. Air rises, clouds build, thunderstorms erupt. Often they form right around the time the temperature would otherwise be reaching its daily maximum. Clouds block some sunlight, rain cools the air, thunderstorm outflow spreads across the landscape. The result is one of Florida's great weather paradoxes. The same moisture that makes 93 degrees feel miserable also helps keep the actual thermometer from reaching 100. Florida can feel hotter without technically being hotter. That is why the heat index matters so much here. When humidity is high, sweat evaporates less efficiently. Your body loses one of its best cooling mechanisms. So a Florida afternoon in the low 90s can feel like 100, 105, even higher, while the official air temperature stays stubbornly below 3 digits. In other words, Florida does not need 100 degrees to feel like 100 degrees. And this is where Florida's reputation can fool us. When people say Florida is hotter than somewhere else, they are often describing how the air feels, not the number printed on the weather map. Compare a dry desert afternoon with a humid Florida one. In dry air, sweat evaporates quickly. Evaporation removes heat from your skin. In Florida's moisture-heavy air, evaporation slows down. The body's cooling system becomes less efficient. So 93 in Miami can feel more oppressive than a much higher temperature somewhere dry. This distinction also explains why a Florida temperature record can look almost underwhelming on paper. Arizona has recorded temperatures far above 110. parts of California have gone much higher. Florida's statewide record is 109. Yet anyone who has walked across a Florida parking lot in August knows that only 93 can be a ridiculous phrase. The number on the thermometer is measuring air temperature under standardized conditions. It is not measuring direct sunlight on black asphalt. It is not measuring the temperature inside a parked car. And it is not measuring exactly what your body experiences in tropical humidity. That is part of what makes 100 degrees such a compelling Florida threshold. The state can spend weeks making people feel as though they are living above 100 without the official thermometer ever getting there. In Tampa in July 2025, just 2 days after the city reached 100 for the first time, the local heat index reportedly climbed to 119, while the actual temperature was 97. Florida's specialty has never been winning the thermometer contest. It is making lower numbers feel worse. And for generations, that was exactly the pattern. Miami's official climate record stretches back to 1995. Year after year, decade after decade, the city endured brutal summers. 95, 96, 97, but almost never 100. There was one exception. July 21st, 1942. That day, Miami reached 100 degrees. Then nothing. Harry Truman became president. Florida's population exploded. Air conditioning transformed the state. Miami became an international city. Interstates were built. South Florida spread west toward the Everglades. Entire skylines appeared. And still, the official Miami thermometer never returned to 100 until August 18, 2026. To understand why this particular day broke through, look at what Florida's normal weather machine was not doing. High pressure was sitting over the region. Saharan dust helped suppress the usual rainfall. Skies stayed mostly clear. And most importantly, the East Coast sea breeze struggled to push inland. Instead of Atlantic air sweeping into Miami and putting a lid on the afternoon temperature, westerly flow dominated much of South Florida. The natural air conditioner was weak. No rain fell at Miami International Airport that day. The normal high for August 18th is 91. Miami reached 100, 9 degrees above normal. At 2:47 p.m., the city tied a record that had survived since World War II. But Miami is not the only Florida city suddenly confronting the number 100. 1 year earlier, on July 27, 2025, something arguably even stranger happened on the other side of the peninsula. Tampa reached 100 degrees, for the first time ever in its official record. Tampa's weather observations stretch back to 1890. For 135 years, the city had never officially touched 100. Then it did. So in the space of 2 Florida summers, Tampa recorded its first 100-degree day, and Miami recorded only its second. That does not mean 100 is suddenly becoming ordinary. It is not. And one hot afternoon cannot explain the climate by itself. Weather is what happens on a particular day. Climate is what emerges across decades. But the broader background is worth noticing. The National Weather Service reported that 2025 was another warmer than normal year in South Florida. Miami tied for its 8th warmest year on record. And Miami's 100-degree day in 2026 did not occur in isolation from that warmer baseline. Still, there is another reason not to become obsessed with the number 100. It is a psychologically satisfying number. It is not a magical biological threshold. 99 degrees with extreme humidity can be more dangerous than 101 degrees in much drier air. Warm nights matter too, because they reduce the body's opportunity to recover from daytime heat. On the morning of Miami's record, the low temperature was 82 degrees. The day's average temperature was 91. So the real story is not simply that a thermometer briefly displayed 3 digits. The story is how unusual the combination of conditions had to become for Miami to get there at all. And if you travel north, you can see just how powerful Florida's geography really is. The hottest official temperature ever recorded anywhere in Florida did not happen in Miami, or Key West, or Tampa. It happened in Monticello, a small inland town near the Georgia border. On June 29, 1931, Monticello reached 109 degrees. That record still stands. The location makes sense. North Florida is wider. Monticello is inland. The moderating effect of nearby coastal water is weaker. Miami, by contrast, is practically wrapped in the Atlantic. That is why the ocean is both Florida's protector and its accomplice. It protects coastal cities from some of the highest air temperatures. But it also supplies the moisture that makes Florida heat feel so relentless. The sea breeze can keep the thermometer at 94, while helping load the air with humidity. Then thunderstorms can knock the temperature down, while turning the afternoon into a steam bath. This is the Florida summer people actually know. Not necessarily 105 degrees on a thermometer, but 90-something degrees. Tropical humidity, blazing sun, sudden storms, and nights that never quite cool down. Which brings us back to August 18th. Miami reaching 100 degrees sounds, at first, like the least surprising headline imaginable. Florida got hot. Of course it did. But buried inside that headline is a much stranger story. For more than a century, the waters surrounding Florida have helped hold back the most extreme daytime temperatures along its coasts. The ocean has been an invisible hand on the thermometer. Usually Miami gets close. Usually the breeze arrives. Usually clouds build. Usually the number stops somewhere in the 90s. On August 18th, 2026, the usual protections did not line up. And for only the second time in Miami's recorded history, the thermometer rolled over to 3 digits. 100 degrees. A number that seems completely ordinary for Florida, until you realize just how extraordinary it actually is. Because sometimes the most interesting thing about the Sunshine State is not what the postcard shows you. It is the thing hiding just beneath it. If you enjoy discovering the other side of the Florida postcard, subscribe for more stories from the Sunshine State.